Yeah, hopping into it, decision making wise, we're like 90% of the way there. We're looking at Sova Ascent. So this is our third Sova Ascent. Our implementation is a lot better now for sure. I think that ultimately we can see improvements on some decision making aspects that I'm going to point out, but more importantly, I think there are times where we kind of lack awareness. So we'll look at the mini map, we'll grab some things, we'll make assumptions, and then we'll die because of the assumptions. We're not like, I guess, refreshing our mini map awareness quick enough, or it's, I guess, maybe we're having too high standards for our teammates. That could be related to coordinated. I'm not exactly sure, but we see some laps there. And then in terms of like the actual mechanics side of things, when we're ready and like dialed in, we are doing pretty well. But when we are, I guess, not expecting it, like we get caught off guard on quite a bit of fights, either by shift peeking or by walking up. And like, there's just a lot of moments where like, oh, like that shouldn't have happened mechanically. And I think that's also partially due to the awareness. So I guess the theme for this week, it seems like awareness and mechanics are tied together. And if we kind of hyperfixate on that, I think it's going to be big. And in terms of the mindset thing, this is a very normal thing that happens. I've reviewed like so many people at this point, and it's just so common. But typically in duo queues, like it's a lot of conversational complaining about teammates in the duo like comms. You guys aren't doing it publicly, which is good, but it's a band-aid fix to actually like not see the immediate problem. One thing I do like about Eurocom specifically is that you'll check your duo on like they will say something and you're like, oh, actually I think that was fine. Like you have your own thoughts and you aren't immediately just like one brain cell, like both trying to find blame on opponents, which is good. But there is that like tendency in that culture, and like you'll say something or they say something and it's more fixed towards your teammates, but you weren't doing it the whole game. So credit to you on that point. But yeah, I'll try to point out these things as we go through it. We were doing mostly fast rotate on defense, which was good. Our attack, we were contesting neutral space a little bit better. I'm just going to point out some stuff here and there. But the main thing that I think will get you over the edge these next couple of weeks is actually playing with intensity and maybe even getting a bit more isolated repetitions on the mechanics, like going into a custom and stuff like that. Yeah, so the mechanics, all that stuff. Oh, learning. I think in terms of macro concepts, everything is very simple, right? On attack, you largely go with the team. You use util with timing on them. Like you try to get more action by having better spacing, more aggressive positioning, all the stuff we talked about is very simple stuff. And then defense, largely playing fast rotate, kind of like going a bit quicker. So let's keep going.
Normal game we've had. Just be ready to yell at me. Oh, you're here. No.
Drone, right? So he initial kill, gets the kill, right? Sure, the drone is great. I don't mind the drone, but he's getting the opener kill, and our drone actually isn't assisting on that. Now, I do like the drone, but if we were going to drone, it should be very explicit that this ISO shouldn't be swinging off of it. So, or should be, yeah, waiting for it. But we get the tag here. We will get the site. We dart. We end up being fourth out, and then this is where we don't have our teammates making our play correct. So this is the shock dart round, I believe, but you're scaling. Take this fight, your Phoenix shot. He ends up tucking, and then we end up running forward and dying. So I don't think that this is a big problem. I think the thing that I want to highlight is two things. One, the utility habit is kind of coming back, and this is probably a confidence thing. Like I would imagine if you were 10-0 this game, you probably wouldn't pull out a shock dart. You'd probably just shoot the guy because like you're going for the 11th kill. That's one. Two is that you're making the assumption that your Phoenix has the angle, and you're also making the assumption that he knows that you are also scaling right side and going for this heaven fight, and you guys are both pathing on this right side. Like realistically, that is not something that even we do well, right? Like I would imagine if this Phoenix was here scaling right side, you'd probably be back here throwing a shock dart, maybe like 5 out of 10 times. Maybe the other 5 out of 10 times you do recognize he's scaling and he's going for the swing, but because awareness in this elo isn't perfect, this is something that happens a lot. So we can't put that expectation on our teammates, and we have to take our fights with the expectation that they're doing something suboptimal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I thought he did because he did shoot and then he tucked afterwards, and that was I don't. There's not a way for me to catch that while I'm scaling, I don't feel. But
no, I agree. Like when you're in the moment there, you just have to grab the info that he shot and you're assuming that you're both going right. But the assumption itself is giving too much credit to your teammates, if that makes sense.
Fair. That is fair.
And that's kind of the framework that you have to go when you go forward. And this is like, assuming that he is going to continue double swinging right side is actually a very high level thing. For him to recognize that you want to go right side and also continue going right. Because like most people don't come to that conclusion because they don't even, number one, know it's a thing, and number two, are expecting it, right? So yeah, we're kind of having, like, I see why you're making the conclusion. It makes a ton of sense. And if he was a mind reader, or if you're communicating somehow like fight, then it might come across a bit more. Like I would imagine if you scale out here and then you're going right side and then you're calming chamber heaven. Like it actually might make the implication to your Phoenix that you're about to fight this. But realistically, it's just like, that's not an assumption you can even make in the VCT level unless you make the calm swing right side with me. And that really only happens in like late round situations and clutches and things like that. So we have to separate those assumptions from our teammates. And I really want you to kind of internalize that. Actually, it even happens this round with your duo. Like we're just making so many assumptions. Specifically, your duo makes the assumption that the guy lane was the chamber. And then he dies because he's making an assumption, right? Like, I don't understand where all of these assumptions are coming from, that these players are playing perfectly and they're doing the certain thing, that like, but there's just so many like gaps in this elo, and we're dying because everyone's making assumptions.
Chamber wide.
So you call specifically chamber wide, which notice actually how you back up right away. I would have assumed that if we droned and knew the guy was there, we probably would jump spot and go for a dart or something like that to push the guy back. But it doesn't actually seem automatic for us to try and push the chamber back, and you'll see that later in A-main as well. But now we start walking up a little bit, and then we aren't actually even ready to trade, like in terms of spacing, like at all. This guy is back, like walking forward, and you're kind of like staring at this angle. Like realistically, our face should be in the wall, ready to swing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So then now we're going for the trade, and thankfully we do get it. Very good micro flick, but it's slightly late, right? It's slightly late. And then of course the sound bait, stuff like that, you know, whatever. We make the call to go A. I did like this. Unfortunately, we will end up falling asleep later in this round. So notice how we didn't even swing here, and we didn't use our dart here. You thought about it. He gets stunned. You pause a little bit. No jiggles, no scale. Now he ults. Now we get reset a little bit. And then this guy's going to walk on the angle and kill us, and we fall asleep. So that's the shift peeking again. But there is a tendency in our gameplay to second guess our swing. And I would wager, maybe this isn't completely true, but let's just guess really quickly. In the 4v2 there, your ISO's in front of you, and then he gets stunned, and you know the Teo is kind of general spot. Let's just pretend like you just wide swung this. You might actually kill this guy. And maybe you don't. Maybe you die, and then this ISO falls back in there in a 3v2, and you look back at this like, well, that was dumb. But the tendency and the idea to try to brute force this fight is something that you kind of need to, I shouldn't say you kind of need to, it's something that I would like for you to embrace. Just go and take the fight and see if you win it. And of course you had your dart here, so if you didn't second guess the dart and you saw the stun, even if you waited, you could have darted and tried to go after. But like, this game all comes down to kills. Everything comes down to kills. It comes down to timing. It comes down to just taking fights, and there's a lack of that. Like if we even go back to this chamber example, it's like we're taking the fight and then we immediately pull out a shock dart because like we're trying to avoid the fight and also assuming that he's going to run back. We're making a lot of assumptions, right? When in reality, we should just filter through all of that bullshit and be like, there's a guy here. I'm here. I have a gun. How do I kill that guy? It's as simple as that. Like Valorant is really just you click head and you win. And if you can boil it down to that, everything else becomes so simple. Because if you can't actually take the gunfight, you're like beating around the bush and there's all this other shit that happens, and it's just, then that's when the game gets really complicated. But it really does boil down to just, there's a player there, you're here, how can you approach that fight and win it? And half of the game is figuring out where they are, and then the other half is just trying to kill the player. So we knew where he was, we just didn't commit to it. I really want you to understand that. It's like 90% of players commit there with the dart and swing, and then if they die, they die, and if they get the kill, it's amazing. Going for this, like even going for this reset here and waiting the ult out is also fine, but we didn't use the dart, and we also shift peek the angle. So like we just aren't actually as ready for the fight, you know, and then we have like a bit of a harsh flick off, whatever. It's just less, it's more so that we weren't ready for it, and you even vocalize it afterwards. You were like, I fell asleep on the angle or something. And then we won the round. So go team go, right? Our so is doing good. This drone here, we drone again. I honestly forget exactly what happens. I think you tagged this guy. We do just get the sight, I think, for this one. Oh yeah, that was a good dart. Yeah, good dart by them. You counter darted the spam. Just didn't really work out for us. and yeah, that just happened. So it is what it is. You actually made the correct positional play, I think, here by not going giraffe. I would have automatically ran giraffe due to my instincts on just going giraffe, and then also based on the notes we talked about, I believe 2 ascents ago, it was if you don't have spike, you go giraffe side, which you were trying to, but the dart was there. But you could probably try to force giraffe here anyways. But you actually end up making the correct decision to not go giraffe, because there ends up being a drone that scans, and then that would have sucked. Okay, so now this is where we make the assumption. So we made the assumption that the ISO was here and he was closer, and he could have played for this drop, but we didn't. So let's kind of rewind a little bit and try to understand why we made that assumption. So he just came out of the ult. We just broke this dart, and then as you're falling back here,
I wasn't expecting that dart, I'm not gonna lie.
You probably registered at some point that the ISO was B main, but looking back at it, like, he's nowhere near B main. He's actually killing this chamber flanking. And then we break this drone, we fall back, and we could have simply just went on the ledge here, but maybe you see the ISO here, like, oh yeah, he's close enough, and then we die to this guy. And it's,
yeah, my initial assumption here was like, oh well, I'm supposed to be more aggressive in the way that I am, and I just am forcing that too much here.
And it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's just the lack of the awareness, maybe just due to the lack of repetitions in this spot. I will maybe voice how I typically play this lane position, because I think it's really good. But normally if they could come out market, if there's a smoke, I hold it. If there's no smoke, I'll hold the edge like this. Or I'll tuck here and then I'll peek late like this. There's a lot of ways you can play lane. You can even just hold the drop specifically, but typically I like to just hold up here. But it's a good spot. This probably is like a awareness repetition thing, which is fine. But notice how your immediate instinct was like, oh, I thought my ISO was holding, and that happens a couple of times. You'll see it later in the post plant. Okay, so I believe this was no, it wasn't this round.
He threw it against the floor, like,
with the Phoenix A main, but let's see what happens here. Was that this one? Oh yeah, it was this one. So notice how we aren't actually taking the duel. Right, our pistol in our round 2, we were just swinging A main. Well, to be fair, our round 2 we darted and then swung A main. But like, there's nothing stopping us from just running down A main and swinging with the 2 people in front of us. There's literally nothing stopping us. If you wanted to use your dart, you could use it just to assist you. But the only thing stopping us is like the fear that this one way is like scary. And ultimately, if you have 2 people run through the one way, it's not that scary. If you use the dart, it's also not that scary. So that's one. He ends up swinging. You'll be like, oh shit, I thought he was going to use the dart because of the one way or the flash. But then notice how we don't actually use our own util after the one way. Now everyone's leaving. It's like, what the fuck? This guy got a kill. We're going to let him get away with that? We're going to let them have A main? So like, everyone's leaving, you're leaving, and then now we get caught on the fallback. When realistically what should have happened is Phoenix dies. Well, what I would have liked to happen at the round start is we just swing A main together with the homies and hopefully we get the trade. But even if after we register the one way is there and the chamber gets the kill, something should happen to punish this guy or to get him off the angle. We dart, maybe we jump spot, maybe we try to just jump peek through the one way and get the kill, which to be fair, this one way is terrible, so we probably could have swung through it anyways. But I don't understand, I guess, how we went from the first 2 rounds to this in terms of the aiming control. You get my point?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, like, I don't know why things devolved to this point either. Yeah, and this is kind of why I was like going on that Yap session at the start. It's not that these are new concepts at all. Like, you know all of this stuff. You know that like if someone's contesting neutral space, you should push them off it so they don't have the info anymore. Like, if you were to look at this VOD conceptually yourself, you'd be like, well, that makes sense. Or like you'd come to similar conclusions, or if it was brought up to you, you would understand it. But it's not translating in our gameplay. And I think part of it is because learning a concept isn't the same as implementing a concept, right? Like, I know in my day-to-day life, if I'm disciplined and I go to the gym and work out and eat well, like, I'm going to be healthy. But like, that doesn't happen consistently to me in my life, and then also to everyone else's life. And it's not a knowledge thing or an understanding thing at that point. It's like a repetition thing, so it has to become automatic. So my proposed solution for this, and we'll circle back around this at the end, but like, going through your round openers for the maps. So my round opener for Ascent is like dart, A main, swing, or run through the one way, or drone. Like, it's going to be one of those 3. If I practice that round opener every single time in a custom, I'm going to naturally do it in the game when I'm autopiloting. So yeah, we'll circle around back to that, but that was just an interesting one. My Phoenix saw the one.
And then you can see there, the Phoenix saw the one way and then just peek try. We also saw the one way, but we didn't dart, right? And to be fair, we didn't peek, but we did a similar, like, we came to the same conclusion as Phoenix in the sense of not using util. So And honestly, I actually like that the Phoenix took the fight. Like, you know, obviously he lost, but like, I'd rather us take the fight. And he might have been thinking, if we're going with the assumption thing, he might have been thinking, oh, I have like 2 people behind me. This one-way shit, we could have just swung that. You know, maybe he's surprised that no one swung with him. You know, so yeah.
Listen, I should have died. Omen funked
So
up
we
the
drone.
one way.
He's there. You wait for the flash. Yep, and then we get the flash. I think this is fine. Going off of the other logic, you are aware that you should push this guy back now. So it seems like the dynamic between B main and A main is a bit different because there's no one way. But personally, if I drone that guy and I see him, I'm probably jump spotting. I'm trying to jiggle this guy out pre-fires, and maybe I'm darting to push him back. Like, I don't always wait for the flash. There's tools you can use to push this guy off. Because, like, realistically, this guy's just going to take maybe 1 or 2 shots and then leave. And especially if the dart is there. Or you could even try to dart swing yourself, you know? So we have to be a bit more self-sufficient, I guess, with approaching angles. And not relying on your Phoenix here. But you can make the argument that you want to save your dart for the hit, which is useful. But I kind of just think that maybe mechanically or gunfight wise, you could also push him back. So you time your dart here with the Phoenix ult, you run out.
Two side.
The spacing is slightly slow. So what I want to point out here is we should be exiting the smoke almost as soon as the dart scans. So this Phoenix is going through right now. Our spacing after we throw the dart should be walking up so that we're here, ready to swing right side to either get the immediate trade or to swing off your dart or to peek spawn. Because market's clear at this point.
When I was looking back at this, I had no idea why I stood here for a second.
Yeah, and you know, that could just be processing information. Like, I can't blame you for that either. But the spacing's good, right? The spacing's good. So we end up coming out here, which is good. You have spikes, you're going lane. You end up destroying this kid through the box. And then I think that just leads us to a round of wins. So oh no, this is the one where we die spawn. Yeah, okay, so shock, couple. Okay, you heard the market guy, so you look for the fight. I'm like, cool. And then at this point, you check minimap again. And clearly, if we look at minimap now, no one has your spawn. But we didn't register it quick enough, and then we died at this guy. This goes back to the assumptions thing, for sure.
I'm giga coping about that. I'm pretty sure I am aware. I'm just throwing.
Yeah, and to be fair, you took some accountability after that round, too. You're like, that's probably something that you just have to learn more when you play more aggressive. So like, you have some self-awareness in that sense, and that's good. Like, it's not all giga cope, and I think that is good to point out. Like, most people just giga cope the entire time, but like, you have some self-awareness that goes the other way as well. So it sounds like I'm bashing you for coping all the time, and that's not really the case. So early drum, he ults, he TPs, we tag, he gets ulted, and you hear this guy spawn, market, spamming. You ult, you thought about darting, whatever. We go out, we kind of win this round, right? So I think it goes pretty well for us. We get on the site, and this is pretty good. What I want to quickly note is 2 things. So this guy's close left, and you hear one spamming, and then you see the missiles. So like, theoretically, you actually have the site. I think you might know that, which is why you thought about ulting and then darting instead. Or you thought about darting ulted instead, so now they're flooding out. There just is actually a 4th player here. Or it seems like the Teo actually threw missiles from A site. I didn't even know they had that much range. But we end up getting out. Somehow I hit the mute button. Whoops. And we end up winning this post. Right? So the big thing to point out is actually we just didn't have any gunfights. And I think that's normal because you're ulting. But if you were prioritizing spacing, it could be a little bit different. And then you make a good comm here. I think you recognize your ISO's positioning this time. You registered it, and then you switched it up, and you know what's going on. And then you say swing off me. I was like, okay, this is good. I will say your crosshair placement is really tight, but it's okay because you adjust after your first shot and we get the kill. So the TLDR that I kind of noticed from attack is actually, before I say it, maybe for recall purposes, it's better for you to say what you got away from the attack half. So maybe we'll start there. In your opinion, what do you think was important to reflect on for the attack half?
I mean, you already highlighted the awareness thing was really one of the most highlighted points, but the second thing was I don't know why I stopped doing, like, because I think, you know, you were right, like the first 2 rounds were exactly what I should be doing, and then I for some reason like just stopped thinking about it. I don't know what I was doing. I really hate this VOD, but that's kind of why I submitted it.
Right.
So like, I don't know, I just need to play the game.
Yeah. How would you word that? Like, or like if you could put it into your own words, that dynamic you were talking about with like the first couple of rounds versus later, just for recall purposes.
Maintaining intent, playing blamelessly.
Okay. And then let's kind of get some examples in there. So I guess
teammate intention.
Say that one more time.
Especially match team intention, especially when third, fourth, second in line, whichever. Perhaps make my intentions more clear as well. I mean, basically, the whole thing is just like, don't autopilot this much.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. In terms of the awareness point, I guess, what did you want to kind of add to that, or maybe clarify a bit more? Like, what does that mean to you?
I mean, it's weird because typically I think that I have very strong awareness and this VOD is an outlier, but like I need to not make as many assumptions for sure as, you know, I'm not playing in my previous lobby. And I'm making a lot of assumptions that things that just happened previously, like last act, will continue to happen.
Okay, so just for the sake of examples, maybe just give me one example from this game.
Use like util usage is not accurate like at all typically. Like don't expect enemy or teammate util to be anywhere remotely correct. Also expect weird reswings.
Okay, I think that's fair. Is there any other things that you got out of the attack half?
I think that's a majority of what I remember.
Okay, so in terms of actionables, and we'll get into this at the very end for process goals in terms of customs, but I think maybe it's going to be a bit more important for us to actually define some clear actionables going to attack halves for us. So given that these are our 2 points, the awareness and maintaining intent, what do you think would be a reasonable like action for you to take in the game so that you make progress on these? And I have my own thoughts, of course, so I'll add them as well, but I want to hear yours first.
Pre-round routine to actually get me focused on the round that's about to come out.
Okay, so what does that look like off the top of your head?
Some kind of like centering thing, like a breath thing, check economy, check what's going on, think about what I want to do in the opening rather than react to what happens.
So kind of going through a checklist. I think that makes sense. Any other actionables that come to mind?
I think that's the biggest thing, because I mean, like, looking back on this is just like I'm not there. I'm just like mindlessly at the keyboard. So like I think that's the biggest thing, because I don't think we've noticed it to this degree in previous VODs.
I'll say like a very easy actionable that relates to attack is using checkpoints in the round. So like I use this for understanding post plant. So like as soon as the bomb is getting planted, or as soon as like I kind of feel like the site is secure, I like look at minimap and like kind of come up with a quick game plan on what is going to happen based on where my teammates are and what fights I want to go. Basically, I use that little downtime of after we've just taken the site, and there's like that couple of seconds before they start retaking. Sometimes it's longer to kind of get situated. So that actionable that I would have for you is going into the post plant, taking like 3 to 5 seconds to check minimap and actually come up with a plan. I guess it doesn't even have to be a concrete plan, but it's like, okay, I see one teammate B main, I see one teammate backside, I want to play here, and then that could be the extent of it, but just using that downtime. So let me kind of just write that out. And you do this automatically, normally, like most people do, but going into this week, because we are bringing up the awareness point, this is one of those things that you will do in the short term, but not in the long term, because in the long term, it will become a lot more automatic. So intentionally transitioning in the post plant, recognize it. I use a bomb plant for an audio reminder for this type of, I guess, checklist. But specifically for this week, try to force yourself to, in the attack half, have that pre-round routine that you're talking about where you're centering yourself, and then when you're going into the post-plant transition, to actually register where your teammates are on the minimap. And if you can do just those two things, set yourself up in the pre-round and set yourself up in that mid-round, you'll probably notice a lot more intent, I guess, with your game, for sure. Let's take a look at defense. Largely, I think defense decision-making was pretty good. Like I said at the start, we're like 90% of the way there in terms of decision-making. It really is just everything else. So, starting to be a little shock. I think this was fine. We rotate over. One spot of tiles is a drone B, so we're kind of making the assumption it's a B split here. We actually didn't commit to the reposition onto site, which I think makes sense because there's no smoke here. But it's a bit scary because now you're playing behind a smoke and they're playing on site. So this kind of goes a little bit back to the flood idea. If you can get onto site, you should try to. Obviously, in this case, we don't have a smoke, so it's very awkward to do so. So I don't hate this play at all. I would just say that this is a pattern we'll see as well on A site, where we actually aren't committing to going onto site and kind of playing in the smoke area. And I know that's something we've touched in the past. And in terms of permission I've given you, it's like, okay, if you have a site player, you don't have to force yourself through the smoke, especially because you're playing a spam agent. But it's something to consider for sure. Like maybe you just find more value doing so. You dart off of their dart in the smoke and the dash. Unfortunately, we don't get the kill. The dart scans a little bit late, which is something that you might want to consider for the start. I don't know if there's better ones that other servers do, but I would imagine if you hear the dash and you dart it just directly at this guy, you probably would get the kill a bit quicker because it scans faster. I think the more traditional one here is like you wait the smoke and they start coming out and then you dart here. And you actually don't even kill the jet, you kill the other guys, but that's something to consider. You don't even have to play the spam game, obviously, if you're on site. So.
That round just felt weird in general because typically I can get 2 off of that dart and it scans more. Like I don't typically get the jet because jet's in her smoke, but I can usually get, 1 to 2 guys trying to run lane still with that. And I thought I timed it right because I timed it with their dart and I heard jet dash and I sent it and it just scanned like the Teo super late, and I was just kind of confused at how any of that happened because that is typically not how it goes at all.
Right. I guess like from my point of view, it's like it kind of makes sense because like this dart is so far for the scan. Like that takes like a couple of seconds for it to even go here. Whereas like the traditional dart to cancel the B rush is like here. After that initial ping, it's going to scan a lot sooner. So, like
that one is faster, but
yeah, in that sense, I think it would be normal. I guess like that's kind of what I would expect. Like maybe you're better off doing a bounce dart like that. I don't know, but yeah. Regardless, we weren't able to actually get on site, so now we're smoked off. We didn't get the spam kill, and the door closed on us. So now our Killjoy is on an island, and I guess that's kind of why I wanted to bring up maybe we should try to reposition onto site. Like I said, it did make sense because we didn't have the smoke. That's one of the downsides of starting market, and you have your smokes on A. It's going to be a bit harder to reposition from market to site. So if I'm going off of that a little bit, like a better starting position might actually just be shock darting from here. And then if they are B, you're able to kind of just go towards site and actually be double site. And then if they aren't here, you can still rotate, and your pacing still isn't really that bad. So that could just be a better starting position than this.
Typically I like being closer to up in the main, but we talked so much about being fast rotate that I'm definitely like forcing myself to be towards in market or mid.
For sure. And there's nothing wrong with market. It's just, if we got the info earlier, maybe we could have repositioned here. We kind of just immediately saw the chamber, so we were like, oh shit. And then the drone came in and like, oh shit. So we're kind of getting pushed and pulled a little bit. And that's kudos to them, to be honest, for actually not just 5-manning off the start, Like if this was a traditional 5-man, you actually could have made it onto site. So we start Cat here again. ISO kills 2. This is kind of what I mean with the ISO is taking the game into his own hands type of thing. He's on an agent that it really helps him do this, but that's kind of thought process you want to be in. So this time we actually did reposition onto site. I was like, that's good. This is great. And I think they didn't hit the site. I think they blinded or something and they canceled. So, but if they did hit the site, we were in a good position for it. So that was a good rotate. Ultimately, I think they end up just re-hitting or something. You'd end up darting here, peek this. Yeah, they end up re-hitting and then you're on a flank or something. And you almost win this, so. Ultimately, I think this round is fine. It's just, they ended up re-hitting. You made the decision to flank instead. Someone made the calm hell. I thought he was hell too. That is what it is for that one.
I also thought it was hell, yeah.
Good play by him on the reposition. Same cat thing, they go A. This time, you drone cat for the mid thing because you realize they aren't going fast A. I was like, okay, that was smart. Then your ISO gets the kill on this. I was like, that works out really well for us. Then we reposition onto site.
Don't think so, I started it.
And I thought this was good too, but then we just didn't respect this angle and then we died. And that's kind of like reminiscent to some of the stuff we saw on attack side, where kind of just like, this wasn't really a shift peak, but it was just like backpedaling into it. But I can appreciate that you're trying to get onto site. It's just the actual fight itself didn't really, it wasn't as dialed in, and you noted that as well.
So. Yep, there was some kind of cognitive disconnect there because I was like, I I am aware I am about to walk into this. I don't know why I'm like, it'll be fine.
Hoping.
There's 5 guys tiles. Okay.
Honestly, forget this round in particular. I think we lose 1 or 2 more. Is this the one where they dash out?
Yeah, this is the dash.
Yeah. So we end up going through at some point. We should probably be through at this point after the Omen blind.
Try to close it. I agree.
But we did end up going through, and then this works out for us. So unfortunately, we get traded. But
looking to the Omen ult.
I did like this position. Maybe we could be a bit more clear on peek off me, because like your clove is fucking inting. But once you actually are through the smoke, you could call him like I'm out, or peek off me, like I have aiming, like something a bit more clear. And unfortunately, we do get traded. So the clove overswung, the ISO ran back to hunt the Phoenix ran back to hunt the Omen, and unfortunately that kind of got rid of our like contact peek type of play. But maybe just being a bit more clear communication wise. In terms of positioning, I was happy that we actually made it through the smoke though, and then we lost one win. I did like this position. I was a little bit scared because of the Civil Dart and the ult, but we kind of committed to it. It seems like more of a hard lead rather than anything, but interesting position. You get the dink. I did like this. You are vocalizing, you're rotating and leaving, and then you're also prioritizing the A flood rather than fighting the lurk right here. So I thought that was a really good decision. I forget if they commit or not. I think there's like a Sova that kills your clove or something. And then,
yeah, he's like alone here.
Yeah, and then they end up going B. Yeah. And then this judge here. This honestly isn't a big deal. You thought he was lane. The main thing I want to point out here is just the tension on the tracking. You can see it's like very like slow and tense. That's just a panic thing, to be fair, and you haven't really had the repetitions in the game, so it's something, to be honest, that I fall into. It's just everyone whiffs, but if you did want to isolate this in the aim trainer, you would try to smooth out your aim a little bit more. But yeah, not a big deal. I think we end up winning this round. So
yeah.
Okay.
I was full expecting him to be like walking down stairs. I've taken that peek a bunch. That's the only time that's happened. But
most of the time they do commit. I guess like if he didn't have a judge, he probably would have kept going.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, he only did that because he had a judge and he wasn't gonna walk down there in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so similar thing what we did on attack. Just any takeaways that you got in your own words for defense?
I think overall, like a lot of the adjustments that we've been talking about were getting done, and I was overall very happy with like how that was going on. There was just weird things where I don't know what I'm thinking about or what I'm doing at the time. I'm just like not flooding, and I don't know why, because that is normally like I am 100% ready for that kind of thing, and it was really weird looking back on this.
For sure. Okay, anything else to add to that?
I should probably look for opportunities to play that spawn rotate, because I do think it is very strong.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else?
No, I think that was a lot of the big things that I noticed in the VOD. I mean, there was that one conversation about like that one ult from Tree, but I think that was just like,
it's not really that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I didn't think it was either. Yeah, so I unless you have anything, I think that's all I noticed. Yeah, no,
those are the big ones. I think our defense for the most part looks in the right direction. Like I said, decision making wise, we're like 90% of the way there. In terms of actionables that I would add here, this really is where we go into repetition. So to start, I guess I want to say that Valorant is a dynamic game, and you can't really like flowchart Valorant to the extent that some people think. But I think that defense is largely solved in terms of playbooks for the basics, right? So if they're rushing, you do this. If they're defaulting, you do this. And then from there, it's more dynamic. As a Recon Initiative player, it's very important to have the skeleton playbook structure for your defense, and to kind of really have that outlined, and then also practicing it in customs. So what I would recommend here, since I do pro reviews, is I would suggest you actually look at either the how to play Sova Ascent video or the pro review just independently, or both. Realistically, if you do both, you have more context. But it kind of boils down to creating a playbook on defense to account for the major things. What is your fast rotate positions? How are you flooding onto sites? What do you do against defaults? Like those type of questions. maybe more loosely, you have your A site hold playbook, your B site hold playbook, your fast rotate playbook, and A site aggression, B site aggression, like typically those spots. And then like if you have like how you want to hold down A site, how do you want to hold down B site, how do you want to fast flood, how do you want to aggress and push A main, how do you want to aggress and push B main for all maps, you're like 90% of the way there, you know? Like you don't really even have to add anything to that. You'll just, your defense is kind of like automatic. So my suggestions to do this would be to create this is start with the pro reviews / agent map guides and the spreadsheet, dojo resources. And then I'm gonna put this in bold, then actually going into a custom and pushing out repetitions for this.
Yep.
And then,
this is all stuff I've done before. I just need to update for this new stuff. So yeah.
For sure. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns?
Nope. That all looks super good. I think we're in a good place.
Cool. In that case, we'll link back up next week. Next week, maybe we can aim to do the player breakdown too, because obviously we didn't do it this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And if you have questions throughout the week, obviously hit me up. But other than that, we'll just go again next week.
Alrighty. Thanks so much.
Of course. You take care.
You as well.
Peace.
Bye.
All right, chat. I'm gonna end there. There is unfortunately a 20-second delay for some reason, because I guess I was playing a ranked game or something. I don't even know the last time I played ranked. But I'm ending the stream. Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the coaching. Hope you guys learned something. Yeah, I'll just leave it on that. You guys take care. Peace.